All right, welcome everybody. I'm here, my name's Fred Langley, and I'm here with Mary De Leon of Restaurant Systems Pro, and we have been really tracking this PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program. We really are staying on top of it for all restaurants, and we wanted to come to you to kind of ease some stress and give you some confidence in moving forward with the program. And so we have some details that we're going to share with you, and we're going to try to keep it very quick and precise so that you can get back to running your restaurants and serving your community. There is limited funds, $349 billion, which sounds like a lot of money, but when there are 30 million small businesses in the United States, I did some quick calculations, and that means that 11.6% of businesses will get funded if it averages out to 100,000. Some of you are going to be way more than 100,000, some of you are less, and so you want to act quick. It says that you can still apply up until June 30th. Is that right, Mary? Still up until
Right,
June?
that is correct. Yep.
So, but that money's going to be long gone by the time June 30th hits. So you want to act now so you don't miss out. It is a government-backed 7A SBA loan, and it will be guaranteed 100% by the federal government. So they're trying to make sure that you're getting funds immediately, and that it's taking the risk, all the risk out of it for the bank, and it's also taking the risk out for you as the business owner by making it where you don't have to have a personal guarantee on it. It is going to be a tough rollout. So the government is using the financial institutions who are already approved SBA lenders to manage the rollout of this program. And so it's going to vary by bank. And so, Mary, you want to talk about the banks and what they're requiring and what it's looking like for some of the big banks and smaller banks and all that.
So if you guys have been trying to apply for PPP so far, if you have the time to look at it yet, you should see that a lot of the banks are having a lot of issues rolling this program out because there's some stipulations that the Treasury and SBA put out where each lender was only going to be allowed to lend out $10 million, right? So they're trying to ease that up so that they can lend to more people. So right down at the very bottom is the application handled through your financial institution. If your bank is maxed out on those loans, you want to make sure that you have a secondary bank that you want to work with. On the SBA side itself, there's a place where you can put in your zip code and look for lenders that are local to you that may be a little bit easier to, the smaller lenders, it may be a little bit easier to get across to than, some of the bigger ones.
There's some definite gray area in this, Mary, because they also tell you not to be applying multiple times for this. At the same time, you need to cover your bases. So just make sure you don't accept multiple. That's where you could get into fraud trouble.
Right. You're just going to submit your application once. So if you cannot get across to your main lender for some reason, they're not getting back to you, then that's the point where you want to look for a secondary lender. A lot of the lenders are also requiring that you have a business account open with them already. So that's something you also want to be aware of when you choose a lender that you want to work with.
Good advice. Good. All right, so changes are constantly happening and we're going to keep you up to date. So it's a good idea to follow us on our social media as we'll be putting out updates. Get on our email list and we'll definitely be putting updates out there. There'll be our contact information at the end. So if you just want to call and say, hey, what do I need to know? Where are we at? And we're here to help you with that. This PPP it's definitely a good option for restaurants. And because the requirement is less than 500 employees. Now, if you're a big restaurant group and maybe you have more than 500 employees over multiple restaurants, it does only count per business, right? And so you don't have to, if you have less than 500 in each of your restaurants, that's one of the things that the National Restaurant Association really fought hard for. If you're a bigger restaurant group, then you can still apply, and you can even apply for every employee, for every EIN number that you have. You can do an application as well because those are all separate business entities. So, and franchises are separate business owners and they can qualify for the PPP as well. You have to be in business before February 15th, 2020. Okay. And so this is a really, really good option for restaurants on there.
Just know that you guys are competing with a ton of other small businesses as well. So getting this ball rolling as quickly as possible is going to be vital to getting the funding.
Absolutely, and making sure you're taking action right now. The loan is the lesser of 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs and $10 million. I'm still trying to figure out who with less than 500 employees is at 10 million. I'd like to see what that payroll looks like. So I'm not sure where the $10 million came from. With some quick math, especially if you're less than 100,000, I don't even know how that adds up to a 10 million. So really it is the 2.5 times the average monthly payroll. That can change. If you're seasonal, they're allowing you to take this time frame of February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019, and calculating what your payroll is from that. So they're also letting you take March 1st as a date to June 30th as well. So if you're busier during these times, which a lot of Arizona where we're at, it's definitely that spring training time, and it's definitely a busy time for restaurants. And so calculating your payroll based on the March 1st to June 30th or the February 15th to June 30th could be a good way of maximizing it. We're going to be giving you information on a spreadsheet that you can use to do these calculations if you request it from us. If you were not open, you're going to be using the first 2 months of the year. So January 1st to February 29th payroll is going to be what it is based off of if you were not open in the previous year. The interest rate on the loan will be 0.5% with 6 months deferred payment and a 2-year payback, and there's no prepayment penalty. And this is where I want to talk to. There's some as restaurants are weighing whether or not they should take this loan. I'm actually going to go to the next one. As they're weighing whether or not they should take this loan, one of the things that can happen is they're saying, hey, I have employees that I've already laid off, we've laid them off. You can hire them back before June 30th. So this could be really important, especially if we're trying to bring everybody back on to get open back up. Nobody knows the time frame of this. I know that China's coming back online now, and they were where we're at a couple weeks ago back in January, and they're starting to come back online. So this could be the time frame we're looking at. There's also a second wave that's coming with this too. So it's up in the air knowing how long this is going to be. One of the things though that can happen is there's been concern of like, okay, the federal government is letting unemployment go up to $600 per week, and then a lot of the states are somewhere $300 to $400 as well. So your employees could be getting up to $1,000 a week in unemployment. So there's a couple things that could be happening. One, it takes like 8 weeks to get unemployment, so they're going to have this time, or not 8 weeks. It's going to take them 4 weeks to get unemployment.
To get it processed, right?
Yeah,
and there is just a small time frame for that extended or the additional $600 fee that the government is giving is going through July 31st. So there is a 12-week time frame with that amount.
Yeah, so they could be giving
it more beneficial.
So that could be good. They could be giving up their job long term though to just get a few weeks of extra pay. Now we want them to be taken care of, but we also want to think long term. So if those employees don't come back, there's this risk that you don't even have enough in your labor pool to be able to cover them. One, it doesn't have to be. It can be new hires. It doesn't have to be your old employees that you're hiring, because they want to keep people employed. That's the whole point of this program. Right. The thing is, if you don't use it all, keep it in a separate account, and there's no prepayment penalty for the principal. So if you end up not being able to use it for the forgivable amounts, which we'll talk about in a minute, you can still hold on to that principal and pay it back, especially if you're debt averse on this. So know that there's those options. Now, when we talk about calculating payroll, there's some things that are in your payroll that it's not just the wages, because it's the salary. Most restaurants don't have people that are over $100,000 a year. If you do, it's only up to the $100,000 per year. In that, the cash tips that your employees would earn can be used as a basis for your payroll, and can also be used to pay out what they would have been making with tips instead of just paying them out minimum wage. Hey, don't make minimum wage, they make plus tips, and so you could be paying out with that, even if you're closed. Payment for vacations, sick leave, all that stuff can be used to calculate it. Allowance for any kind of severance that was paid out can be used for calculating what your payroll was. And this is a big one. If you have healthcare benefits, that's included in your payroll calculation as well as retirement benefits. Payroll taxes. Now, here's an important one. Payroll taxes are used to calculate your total payroll, but from what I'm seeing is they can't be used in the forgivable part of the loan. And another one that's very gray area is who is deemed an independent contractor and who is not on there. So like consultants supposedly are not covered, and so it's this whole gray area of where that's covered. So I would just advise caution in that area and probably leave that out, because it's very unclear on who's considered a 1099 employee. Like, can you consider the bands that you have playing for you on there? It's all very gray, and I'm very nervous about calculating any of it in there.
If they consider it a service, then you do not want to include them at all. If it's an employee that's doing actual work, a 1099 employee doing work, then you want to have those 1099 gathered and send it across with your documentation. But if it's something for a service, a 1099 for bands and that sort of thing that would be considered a service, you want to definitely leave those out.
Yep. Great. Okay, what can you use them for? So you can use them for all of those wages, and especially the wages up to the 100,000 above that. But you can also use them for the cash tips, which is great. And then you can use it all the payment on vacation, all those payroll costs, especially keeping that healthcare going for your staff. Definitely you can use it on all that. The only thing you can't use the funds, well, you can use them for, but you can't have it, but it's not forgivable, is the actual payroll taxes portion of this. So mortgages, mortgage interest, leases, service contracts, utility payments. So that's going to be gas and electric bills. Mary, any word on like internet? Is that being, and phone being counted as utilities? From what I'm hearing,
whatever is standardly considered a utility right now. Again, the rules are not very clear. There's a lot of gray area, and things will start getting clarified as some of these loans start getting paid out. But anything like a normal utility, gas, light, that sort of thing would be what you want to use.
Gas and electric for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you want to be really careful on how you allocate the 25% of these funds. You don't want to use it to pay down any other debt, any restaurant, any of your business debt or anything like that, because you will be responsible for that if you use it. Yep. And they may consider that a fraudulent transaction, because this program is designed to keep people employed. Yep. So you want to be really careful.
It's to ease the unemployment lines for sure, because it's crazy. I saw a graph that is it's really crazy. This is unprecedented unemployment claims. I saw a graph of what unemployment claims look like through history, and the graph shoots up like 100 times higher than any point in history, which is crazy. Too. So the other one to think about on use of funds is if you have interest on other debt obligations. Some of you have fleet vehicles, and you have loans out on those fleet vehicles, and so those are the interest on those loans is definitely something that could be used with these funds. So the forgiveness part of this is where Mary is talking about. All the mortgages and the interest and the loan principal, all the things that it can be used on is what it can be forgived on as well, but there's certain ratios that you have to use it. Okay, so you can use on rent and your utilities during this 8 weeks after the issuance of the loan up until June 30th, right? And then and mortgages and leases and all these service contracts that you have, but prior to February 15th to be eligible for forgiveness on this. But the amount of the loan forgiveness will be reduced if the reduction of the number of employees or wages in excess of 25% of total wages during the period. So you have to try to not reduce your workforce by more than 25%. Okay, and this is where I was talking about. Hey, if you end up not using it, not using it all, then keep that principal and pay it back. If you're not able to live up to this, don't spend it on other things. Keep that principal. So if you're not able to get this forgiven because you end up having to lose more than 25% of your workforce, just because you couldn't do the business or you couldn't keep them employed based on the revenue that you're doing, hold on to this principal and pay it back. Don't get yourself in a position where you have a loan that you don't want on this, and then you end up incurring penalties because you use this money for things for purposes that were deemed not covered in the use of funds provision. So that's a really important part. The other part of this is that you have to use 75% of the funds have to be for payroll, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're using them 25% of it or more of it for non-payroll costs, then the forgiven amount, then that amount will not be forgiven. And that's a really important point that Mary touched on earlier. So you want to look at when you're using this money to just use it. It may if you and the reality is if you're able to pay your payroll, it could free up more funds in the company to be used for other things. Where it's really difficult is if you're not operating right now. Just make sure that you're not spending more than 25% of this money on your rent and utilities and leases, all those things that are non-payroll. You need to use 75% of this money for payroll expenses.
Right.
So how all this is going to happen, we don't know, but on the April 26th is a deadline that the SBA will be putting out more information on how the forgiveness provision will function. So it's not entirely out there on how the forgiveness function will occur. We want you to know that we're here for you. We want you to know that we're here to support you. If you are a client, we will do all of this paperwork for you. Make sure that you get it filed. If you are not our client, we still want to help you, and so we'll provide you with a detailed checklist that we're constantly updating. Mary, let's actually, as we're kind of talking this through and going as we go, let's actually make that probably a Google document that we share with people. That way, as we update it, they can see it. Okay, so let's make a note of that. That way they can constantly go back and check the Google document, and if we've had updates to it, they'll see the changes to that. So even if you're not our client, we want to help you. So we'll have also the spreadsheet that you can use to make all these calculations that you can put in. If I'm seasonal, here's the portion that I use. If I wasn't open, the spreadsheet has all of those things. And so we'll want you to be able to use this spreadsheet to make these calculations and make sure you're doing these things correctly. Like I said, if you're our client, we will do these things for you. I wish that we could do them for the whole world. We're just trying to help as many restaurants as possible. So if you're not our client, we're still going to provide you the resources to make sure that you can knock this out and get it done. We're also offering something right now that is going to be launched, is that if you've been thinking about using our services and haven't, we're going to be offering a program where you can start using our accounting services and start using our restaurant management software today and not be billed until July 1st. Okay, and so we're just getting that rolled out now, so hopefully you'll be seeing lots of more information on that. So if you say, hey, I do want you to do this for me and I've been thinking about using your systems, it's great. We have lost clients in this process, and we've lost, and here's what I'm seeing though, is I have this 25% of my clientele that is like, hey, Fred, sorry, we're getting crushed right now. This is terrible. We're cutting expenses from our restaurant. And I understand that. And we're actually not allowing people to drop us, and we're still serving them because that's who we are. It's like when times are tough, who you are as who you always say you are, is sometimes different than what actions that you take. And what we're doing is trying to back up who we've always said that we are and backing them up with what we're actually doing to serve the community today. So hopefully everybody can see that. So what we're doing is we are not letting anybody cancel, and we're still serving them. But there's this other segment of our clients, and they're the ones that have been taking action. They've been doing their inventories, they've been doing their recipe costing cards, they've been tracking their purchasing, they've been using the scheduling system and pre-planning their schedules. The clients that were bought in and doing the work, and then they're saying, I don't know how I would ever survive this without the system. I don't know how I would ever get through this without the system. And I have to agree, if you're using the system to its full potential, then I don't know how you navigate this change in environment without really clear vision that our systems give you. So um, I want you to be part of the ultra successful part of our clientele. And man, if you've always been thinking about getting started, then hey, we're offering it free until July on this. So I don't know how much more I could possibly do for the restaurant community. If there's more that you think I could do, there's my contact information. Call me up and test me out, because we are doing everything we can to help you. There's Mary's email's not up here. She's going to be busy serving our clients. If you want to be a new client, you can contact Greg or I. My cell phone is right there. You can contact me anytime, and we're really trying to help you out. Mary, anything else from there?
The best advice I can give you, if you don't work with us and you go at this on your own and you don't have that much help, make sure you have all of your documents together in one location, have them scanned into your computer, because you don't necessarily know how these banks are taking the documentation, whether they have a portal or whether you have to email it to them.
Yep.
So have all of the documents that they're requesting scanned and ready to go right away, so that you can send them that information. If you send them incomplete information, they will put you at the back of the line. So that's the best advice I can give you, for now. And
That's a really, really good point. And so, once we get in there, you got, what's that information, right? Oops, let me get that shared. That information is going to be the date you started business's mailing address, and then you want to gather your 941s from last year, right? Get your 941s. Yep. Get your 941s together. That is your payroll tax forms, and that's what you submitted to the federal government. So get all of 2019. Probably the first quarter of this year's are not prepared and ready. So have all of 2019 ready to go, all 4 quarters. If you have, our spreadsheet will walk you through a lot of the other criteria that you need to have as far as the $100,000 provision and all that. Then you want to have your complete 2019 financials, including your P&L and balance sheet, ready. And that's where, man, if you don't have that stuff together, you definitely need to call us and talk about it. And even if you don't have the money, we're saying, hey, if you don't have bookkeeping, we're going to give you 3 months of bookkeeping for free right now. So I don't know who else is doing something like that today. So we can help you get all that stuff together.
Are going to be important. So you want to have all of your payroll reports, starting from the last payroll that you paid out and the trailing 12 months before that. Your business documentation, sort of like your articles of corporation, all of that stuff, you want to have it available.
Yep.
All of your owners that have 20% or higher stake in your business,
good point.
Their driver's licenses front and back, or some of the banks are requesting that as well. So just make sure you look over the list of documentation that's needed, have all of that available and ready to go as soon as they request it from you, so that you're right there in the front of the line. If you don't send them a complete application or document list, they're going to send you to the back of the line.
Yeah, make sure you have it right. So even if you're not our client and you want to make sure you have your stuff correct before you send it, give us a call and we can look over what you have and let you know, like, hey, this is what you're missing, this is what you need, and we'll make sure that we're there to serve you well.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. Reach out to us if you have questions, and be safe out there.
Be safe. Wash your hands.